Hmm.
Oh, it muted me for some reason.
Did you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But you're not showing up. Oh, there. Now you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Now
Um,
I'm.
but it should show up for you to be side by side with me, and it's not for whatever reason. It's not, but that's okay. Sorry, we're just doing a little bit of problem solving, folks here. But I mean, I think we're there. I think we're live. I'm just going to tag everyone here real quick and let everyone know that we are live. I'm live here with Miranda. And sorry, you can't see us both at the same time. I don't understand why that's not working, but it's okay. I'm just gonna look at this real quick. So try to see if I can problem solve it before we get started. And it allows a few people to get on because we only have one viewer as of right now that might even be registering as me, but I know a lot of people will watch this too as we go. And maybe it's because I didn't add it as a spotlight. So let me just see if there's, I don't remember how to do that, but okay. Well, that's okay. We'll uh we'll, we'll go ahead and get started. So, all right. Well, we're officially live here, and I mean, at least it looks like it. We're live inside EDH, Mastering the Art of Liberty Horse Training, and I'm excited to have anybody here with us that is watching this or will be watching this later. I'm excited to have Miranda here with me today. And we're really going to have a nice little deep dive into how she's pivoted some of her communication. We're going to get some clarity and I'm just going to look here. Oh yeah, okay. So I got a couple of Koreans here. Good. So I've got people in here. Okay, I thought it froze up for a second. So all right. So again, we're gonna get a little deep dive and see how she's pivoted some of her communication, get some clarity, how she reinforces her horses, a nice little, you know, how she has a nice little rock solid foundation. And also I want to see what she's doing. She's looking and how she's looking to move forward from here today. So those are some things. And we're open to questions this entire time. So feel free to drop a question, anything that you guys have as we kick this off. And I believe too, so since Kareen is live or watching this live, Kareen is a friend of mine, and I do believe that today is her birthday. So I just want to acknowledge that. Happy birthday to Kareen if you're still listening, if you're still watching this live. But anyway, so if anybody has questions, I see a couple people are hopping on. That's great. And we're open to questions. So let me get to Miranda. How are you doing today? I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. You're good. Were you working with horses earlier?
Yep, I was.
Okay. All right. So I a little bit, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Baker. I'm a Liberty performer, competitor, ILHA carded judge, and coach for everyday horsemanship, mastering the art of Liberty horse training and the Liberty experience. And this is really one of my favorite things to do because not only do I get to see the front end when people come into my program and see where they're at with their horses, but I really get to see the journey for my clients on the back end as they grow in their relationship with their horses. And I really love doing this little touch base live stream so that people can get a chance to see what that journey looks like from the client's perspective. And so, touching on the Liberty journey, Miranda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to wanting to do Liberty?
Okay, so I've been training horses since I was 15. I got my first horse when I was 11, and I think I've been in love with them since I can remember. I was not raised in a horse family, so I had to scrap and fight my way the whole way to be able to be around horses. Um, really sure when I started wanting to do Liberty. I think I just like saw some YouTube clips and was like, that's really cool. I want to do that. And so then I try to like go mimic it outside and I was like, that does not look the same. And So I just kind of figured they had magic that I didn't have, and that was that. And so I don't know, years went by. I always loved tricks. So when I was a kid, I got this cassette tapes and the guy explained how to teach tricks. And so I taught my horse to shake, bow, um, count, and say yes and no. And then I started riding and kind of got sidetracked on the riding part because that was when before I could ride him. Anyway, but the Liberty stuff has always just like captivated me, but I've never been around anybody that could like show me what to do, and I didn't know how to like dive into it. So I played around a little bit, but I just didn't understand how to make it like all come together. And so then I tried with a local person because they said that they did Liberty, and it just didn't work out for me. Like, I don't know. I didn't catch on, and I didn't feel like my horse was catching on, and so I kind of gave up and thought, well, too bad, I'll try something else. But then when I saw somebody talk about Laura and how they were taking lessons with her, I thought that is the way to go. Like, I don't have to leave my barn. I could be right here and do it at my convenience. And so I've been trying to dive in.
And I like it better than a clinic, I think, because I think I can give you one-on-one attention a little bit. I don't know how you feel
Yeah,
about
for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So, yeah.
I actually like the part that you can't like help me because I find now that sometimes like if I'm because I teach lessons like just writing lessons, and sometimes I catch myself like doing it for the person while I'm explaining it, and they're not going to learn when I'm doing it for them. So
Right.
I kind of think it's nice that you can't like step in and be like, no, this is how you do it, because I don't think I'd learn it that way.
I like that you brought that up because that is a factor. Whenever I've been in person with somebody giving, whether I'm giving a clinic or giving a lesson, and there's often times where I step in because it's just easier to show someone like, hey, your horse can do it. Uh, but it is a lot different because now it forces you to do it yourself and to
Yes.
step up a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good thing because even if it's a little bit harder, it makes me work through the steps.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes me, on my end, think a little differently about how I am going to articulate it to you. So I think we often overlook it when we're in person because we're doing so much where we're showing it versus talking it through. But it really forces a coach like myself to step back and say, how can I better deliver the message to my client so they understand to, step forward, lean in, do this, and all the things that we really need to be doing, sequencing with our horses, sequencing that body language and being consistent, and how we, by articulating it better for you so that it really gets you thinking about your body language and what you're telling your horse and communicating with your horse.
Yeah, and I think that's actually harder as a coach to have to tell someone than show them, because trying to
Yeah.
explain it can be pretty difficult.
Yeah. It takes someone experienced in doing that, and prior to this, years ago, I actually 8 years worked at a college and teaching, and so teaching was in my background, so that really helped, but also, it's the same thing that we do with horses when we teach people, we break it down into smaller skills, just like when we teach horses, so 50% of those exercises that you're learning, 50% is for you, 50% is for your horse.
That's for sure.
Well, hey, I mean, let's focus on this too. So, with some of your background working with horses, training horses before you moved into Liberty training, and actually, real quick for this, real quick, I just want to sidetrack for everyone watching this. What's been your typical pastime with your horse? Like, what's been your focus? So, if everybody out there, if you want to put in the comments, is your pastime trail riding, equitation, ranch work? Are you currently doing Liberty? Just looking to step into Liberty? I kind of want to run this little poll, get an idea, see where everybody's at here. But for you, Miranda, what kind of things in your training background have made it easier for you to transition into the Liberty training space? Dressage, okay. Toby's got dressage, but what made it easier for you?
I don't know. I think maybe working with all the different horses I work with has maybe helped because you have to, there's so many kinds of different angles you have to start teaching because they don't all fit into a box, you know?
Right.
So I think being able to like have the experience of a whole bunch of different horses helps, but I mean, not everybody gets to do that. So
Right. And I love that because that is true. Not everybody gets to do that. A lot of people have just one horse, maybe two if they're lucky, and they don't have that experience of working with different personalities and getting that. I mean, there's something to be said about field time and experience, right? Experience is that third equation to that. And
yeah,
yeah.
like I worked with a lady who had for most of her life she'd had a hot horse, so she was like very calm and quiet, and that worked great for her hot horse. But then she brought a horse to me that was really laid back and easygoing, really kind of like Butter, lazy. And she was not, she said, I just don't know, understand how to get this horse to like move and do what I want. I'm like, well, you have to amp it up. Like you're used to your quiet horse where just one cluck gets it to go, but this horse needs some energy. You gotta put a little energy out.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because yes, you do your energy changes based on the horse that you are working with. I
I
just
think
said that to someone, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, last night
I think
actually in a lesson.
I think that's one of my favorite things about training horses is how you have to control your energy. Like, you know, and when I'm having 6 or 7 horses in one day, like I can go from being really amped up to really like laid back to being amped up. And I have to like rate it, you know, for every horse, which I don't know, I find really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Some horses you don't need much energy at all and others are, that's yeah. And that's exactly what it was last night. So what was your most, favorite impactful aspect of working with Butter at Liberty? What I mean, like, what was the biggest change that you saw within, Butter or your other horses that you've been working with? Because you started doing some Liberty with your other horses, right?
Yeah, I've played with a few of the training horses. I
Yeah,
haven't wanted to put quite that much time into everybody's horse because it, you know, I a lot of the times they come to get started under saddle or whatever, and I don't think they want me just spending hours on Liberty work. But
yeah,
yeah, a few of them that have been harder. Like I've had a couple that have been um wild horses for several years or whatever, and it's been fun to be able to like implement some Liberty stuff to try to get them to start trusting me. And I love the clicker training for those horses too, because then they're thinking I'm not quite as awful as they thought I was before.
right,
But my
right.
favorite thing with Butter is how well she comes now. I mean, I just love that I can go down even when she's eating or when she's napping, and I can call her name and she gets up and she doesn't hurry, but she comes all the way up to me no matter what she's doing. She wants to come see me, which I don't know, that makes my heart, I don't know, squeeze or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I'm in love with her.
Yeah, I mean, because you've really built that relationship with your horse that I mean, talk about what it looked like before. What did that look like before you started doing this?
Well, she was never hard to catch, but you always had to go to her and, you know, I mean, she was wild 2 years ago, so but at the end of our 100 days that I did on her, she you could catch her. You could walk out in the pasture and go catch her, but it definitely wasn't to call her and have her come up to you type of situation. You walk to her and then, you know, try to convince her to put the halter on. And she's never been a hard to catch horse. Well, I shouldn't say never. When she was wild, she was obviously hard to catch, but after the wild part was over, she's never been like one that ran away, but she's never been like the easy one either until I started Liberty. And it was only a few sessions in where all of a sudden she was like coming when I called her name.
Right,
And even if
right.
I don't call her name and she sees me coming down there, even to like go catch another horse or something, she comes over just to check me out, see what I got going on.
Kinda like she's looking forward to maybe a session with you, like, asking
Yeah,
you a question, "Are we going to play today? Are we going to do this?" Yeah.
I feel bad because she's been doing that all week and I've been busy, and I'll walk over there to catch somebody else and she'll be like, "Me, please, me." I'm like, "Sorry, got sick."
I actually have that with my horses as well. Yep. When they see me out there, they're standing in line waiting. So I totally get what you're saying. I love that. And and working with your horses, you actually went through a little bit of a pivot, I would say, when you started Liberty training, and with what motivated your horse, and expand on that for a moment. What were you doing with Butter, for training before you found my program? And what was that major shift that took place besides that you could catch her? And we talked a little bit about clicker training, and what worked for you, and what didn't with that other. You started working and doing some Liberty with somebody else. So how did all of this, so kind of compile this shift? You pivoted. How did it make the difference within Butter's training? Walk us through that story.
Well, she was definitely a big time mugger. Like the first time I got her out, she was like with you, she was so horrible and I didn't know how to fix it. So I was just like, this is how she is, trying to eat me the whole time. But
You the whole time.
not literally, but she wanted to get, she was gonna reach into my pocket and get the treat herself if I didn't give it over fast. But I feel like there was a really hard spot there, like going into our Liberty Circle. I mean, at one point there, I was almost wondering if I should give up, if I was just too stupid. I thought it can't be Butter. She's a smart girl. It must be me. I must just not be figuring it out. But then when I got out that other horse and was playing around with her, I did the same exercises over like 3 different times, and she picked up the Liberty Circle right away. And I was like, oh, it's not me. It's Butter. Like I can figure out how to do the steps. It's just Butter that needs to figure out how to do the steps. So I think that made it easier for me to not give up, was just realizing I just needed to try a little bit longer and it would come eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. And touch on that a little bit. So Butter doesn't mug you anymore, right? Is that what you're saying?
No. No,
Yeah.
Butter doesn't mug me, but I was just talking like about the Liberty Circle. Like to get that
Right.
Liberty Circle, I was just feeling like we couldn't figure it out. Like I
Right.
wasn't getting it or
Right.
she wasn't getting it. We
Right.
both didn't get it. But then when I worked with that other horse, I was like, oh, I do understand this. Apparently she doesn't.
Apparently it was Butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And we have our own
definitely,
little food jokes with Butter, don't we? we have a
yes,
few.
you do.
Yeah, we have some. Yeah. So speaking of that, but so I mean, overall, like, what impact did that make on you? Like, walk us through this. How does that look when you take a new horse for training, or any horse, or some of your own? I mean, are you using positive reinforcement now? Did you use that before? I guess bridge cues, you talked about clicker training. I call it bridge cues. A lot of similarities. I use them a little bit different, but you know, talk about that a little bit. What
Okay, so I
impact?
guess I was kind of delving into it a little bit, even though I didn't understand it. I was trying my own form of clicker training before I started with you. So I got introduced to it by a lady who brought a horse for me to train, and at the time I kind of thought this is kind of silly. Like when I watched her like telling me, she always like would introduce herself to him, and when he'd like come up and touch her hand, then she'd click and treat, and I thought, okay, why can't she just touch him like a normal person does? I don't know. I thought it was a little weird. And then I had a horse that came to me that had injured the owner pretty badly because of bolting. And I thought, oh, I can fix this. And I spent several weeks of like working with her extensively, and I couldn't fix it. So she would randomly spook. And when she spooked, she'd just take off. And when she took off, you couldn't stop her. And I tried all the normal things that I was used to trying, tons of desensitizing, like to all these different objects, and it didn't matter. Like if something scared her, she was gonna still do this bolting thing. And I don't know what, I don't even remember like the time that I all of a sudden thought maybe I should try treats. I knew she loved food, so I thought, well, maybe I'll just like try to get her. I think it's because somebody else was telling me if they had their horse touch an object. I think that's what caused it. They're like, I have a horse that they're any object they're afraid of, touch it with their nose, and then I give them a treat, and then they associate it with food. I'm like, hey, that's not a bad idea. So I took her around to eat all the objects she was afraid of, and she'd be like acting terrified, standing back, snorting, and all that stuff. And I'd wait for her to like walk up and touch it, and it only took like 2 or 3 times of touching it before she realized, hey, she got food every time she touched the scary object. And that like literally changed her. Like she quit like freaking out. Like we hadn't had any freaking out sessions in months, and then I ended up selling her, and now she's a little boy's horse, and he adores her. So I think that I don't know. Sometimes I just don't think traditional stuff works for every horse.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that kind of got me on the idea of clicker training. So I was playing around with it a little bit with Butter, but I didn't understand how to get her to not mug me. So we were kind of having, the food issues
Yeah.
with her because
Yeah.
she's very, very food aggressive.
I was gonna say we dove into that right away, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So, uh, so she's not as or she doesn't really mug you anymore. I don't.
When we're not in a training session, she's out in the pasture. Sometimes she still does the thing of reaching into my pockets to see what I've got going on in there. But if I like start to get after her, I'll be, hey, and she's like, oops. And she pulls her nose away from me. So she still does it once in a while, but it's definitely way less. I mean, on our sessions when we're actually working, she rarely mugs or tries to mug me.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Sometimes she
I
gets
don't
real
see it
greedy.
because I would normally call that out. So, so what are try to remember back a little bit. I mean, we did do treat receiving mode, but what are some of the first exercises that you're teaching the Liberty horses now? So when you go and you're kind of modeling this, what we've done, and with some of these other horses, what does that look like?
I've been doing like I do the wall to draw exercise on the wall.
Yeah,
Which I find sometimes horses that don't like being in tight places, that can make them feel a little like trapped. So I
sure.
feel like it's for them because I had one that she did not like being be with the wall on one side and my whip on the other side. She just like she want to just zoom forward and run over the top of me. So I don't know. I feel like that's really fun. And then I love the exercise of having them. Now I can't even think of the name, but going sideways.
The
The
half
start.
moon,
Yep,
the
half
lateral
moon.
half moon. Yeah,
I always
yeah,
do that with everybody nowadays because it softens them up so much for like just side passing.
yeah. It
So I
does.
was like shocked the first time I hopped on Butter and like asked her to side pass, and she just did a really nice side pass without any of the difficulties I've had with, other horses not wanting to side pass. It doesn't magically fix it. Like I have one horse in training right now that hates side passing, and no matter how much I do the half moon, she still doesn't like doing it on when I'm riding her. But I feel like it makes things a lot easier for them to break it down in that
Yeah.
small bits.
Yeah, I love how you've associated that because I mean, groundwork isn't anything, it's everything when it comes to getting a horse ready for the riding portion of their training. And it helps to, we talk about breaking things down into smaller bite-sized pieces for a horse to understand. And you have a lot more control when you are on the ground. If your horse gets frustrated on the ground, imagine what they're going to do when you're in the saddle. And so the more times, the old saying, the more times you pick yourself up off the ground, the better your groundwork gets, whether it's
Yeah.
liberty or, and a lot of liberty is just practical horsemanship too. I mean, all these fundamentals that you do that get you ready for it. So yeah. So you're working with Butter at Liberty, and you have other horses you've worked. What personal impact or goals are you making as you are achieving some, I mean, some pretty cool Liberty milestones with, at least with Butter, and what is your vision for the future? How do you think, Butter is changing during that process? What's your vision? What do you think?
Well, I my vision for Butter is to eventually have a Liberty team. I'd love to have, I mean, just a two. I don't need to have 10 horses or something like some people do, but I'd love
It
to just
always
have
starts with one and ends with 10. I'm gonna tell you. Once you have two, you want three, you want four.
okay, well, for this year, I want to have two. I'd love to have a team, but my big goal right now is I really want to be able to do Mustang Mania and do a freestyle at Liberty. I don't know if I'll be able to reach that goal, but that's like my dream of being able to do that. And it won't be this year. Maybe it's next year. But one day I'll do it.
I
That's
believe
the
you can. I believe you will do it for sure. So there's a lot of people who are either watching this live or planning on watching the replay. What do you want them to know about Liberty training in general? And what's one thing you would recommend to others doing Liberty?
well. I think everybody should try Liberty. I think it's great. I think if you have an older horse you can't ride anymore, then I think it's great for them. I think if you have a young horse you can't ride yet, it's great for them. And I think if you can ride your horse, it's really fun to like warm up with or whatever. I don't know. I just think everybody should do Liberty. But I don't know what I would recommend. I guess trying it. And
Yeah.
to not be afraid of like clicker training, because I know a bunch of people who think positive reinforcement and clicker training are, stupid and are going to ruin your horse, or that treats are going to mess up your horse, but it totally doesn't if you do it right and teach them not to mug.
Right. It's all about motivation, right? Using that
Yeah,
motivation. There's something in it for the horse. And I tell people that all the time. There's got to be something in it for the horse. And so and you touched on the fact that it's good for your horse. It's all, and you've worked with a lot of Mustangs, you've done it, you've seen some of the work that you do when you start doing groundwork, whether it's liberty based groundwork or foundation groundwork. A lot of it's the same, starts off the same, but it really can settle these guys down, these reactive horses. And I think you kind of touched a little bit on that. And
definitely.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think if you have a more reactive one, the Liberty and the clicker and the positive reinforcement stuff really helps a lot with their scared or their spookiness or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I was working with one this morning that I have in for it's been with me for a little while, but we took some time off in the winter. It's a friend's horse, and she's a really good horse. Just being a Mustang has some there's a lot more fear when it comes to Mustangs. But I have found that doing some of the Liberty stuff with her uh has really helped her to just relax and start to trust and build that relationship of looking to me for that leadership versus her first go-to was, and she's a big horse. Her first go-to was to jump into my space,
Oh,
and yeah, so it really puts some spatial awareness in there too when we work on Liberty with it. But so I mean, so let's back up a little bit though. You talked a little bit, you mentioned half moon as being your favorite exercise now. And there were some struggles along the way on occasion. And I think the half moon was one of those. You and Butter kind of struggled there for a little bit. Talk about that for a little bit, and what finally shifted for you as you work through as we work through that together in your coaching session.
I kind of think my personality, the harder it is, the greater the rewards for me. Like Butter was a hard horse to like get tamed down, and I feel like the half moon circle is the same way. So that's funny because it was really hard for me, but now it's my favorite thing to do. And Butter was really hard. Like when I finally was able to touch her, she came at me with her hooves flying, and she was like, "I'm gonna murder you."
Oh
And now she's my
yeah.
favorite horse. So
Yeah,
maybe I feel like the harder it is to achieve, the greater the rewards. Like at the end, it's worth all that work. But I think what really made it click for me was working with that other horse and like seeing how she differed from Butter, like because she reacted differently. Like Butter kind of it's lazy and doesn't want to move, and the other horse wanted to
right.
move, and so that I feel like that made it easier. And then I could like connect all the dots and then be able to go back to Butter and use it. And now playing with a bunch of different horses with it, I can see how each one reacts differently. And I don't know. I think that helped. I know not everybody has that ability, but
Right, right. But really, I mean, it boils down to, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
being able to have extra test subjects.
Yeah, have extra tests. I like the way you put that. Um, yeah, yeah, because you do get a lot of experience when you get to work with multiple horses, and I love all that, the points that you're making, because I mean, even if you only have one horse, it boils down to it's the routines, the consistency, the clarity of communication, right? That's really um a lot of it. For you, one of the things I recognized early on was something I see in myself too, and I saw this in another client the other day, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way my brain operates a little bit is in this kind of controlled. chaos state where I'm thinking of a lot of different things at once. You know what I'm getting at, yeah. And I'm multitasking, and I need to get a
Yes.
lot. I, yeah, I need to get a lot done in a short period of time, and I see that in you. I
Yep.
totally see that with you. And we shifted gears a little bit in the beginning because with horses, it's the direct opposite. Less is more. And so I went back and kind of worked with you, slowed that down a little bit because you're like me. It's I've got to do this, I've got to do this.
Jump with both feet.
Jump with
Yeah.
both feet. I think I saw that shift in you when you started to expect less through smaller skills, and that's when we advanced on your exercises. That's when I saw some changes, right?
It's really hard to see somebody doing a Liberty Circle and not think that you can just go out there and just magically do it with your horse in one session, you know? Like
Yes.
you think, well, I can just do that, you know, you just do it. It just happens. And then you realize, no, you have to actually work for that. It doesn't help when they show on different TV shows or movies or whatever, them people doing that and it just, they're just magically doing it and you're like, "Oh, you can just do that."
Right. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, that's hours
No.
and hours of work.
Yeah, it's not a magic wand. There's a lot of little pieces that go into it before you get to that point. A lot of things that you might not be thinking about. Yeah. And for people that aren't doing Liberty or you've tried to do Liberty, you can always restart, right? You can always go back and start from the beginning, right? And fill in those gaps, break those skills down further, expect less at one time. Don't try to expect more, all of it all at once. I do see that a lot where I think that that's probably, if that I were to say one of the biggest mistakes that I see or the most common problems with my clients is that I see people expecting way too much and to just slow it down a little bit and break it down a little bit more. So,
It's good to remember to work with the horse you have today because you might have been doing a Liberty Circle last week, but this week it might not work out.
right, right,
You might have
exactly.
Butter just running like a mad woman around the arena.
Yeah, from day to day, you never know. So what's an insight that you could share with everyone? Where should they start if they're wanting to do Liberty with their horse? Like everyone wants to know where to start their Liberty journey, and it's not really like one magic maneuver, like you said, and and you suddenly have Liberty. So uh, where would you tell people to start? And what exercise should they start with? Give people that insight.
Well, I definitely think starting with that drawback exercise on the wall just to get them starting. I mean, I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but that's what we started with Butter, and so that's what I'll start with other horses, and then I move to the half moons exercise and try to get them bending because they're all straight and like to not bend, or most of them anyway.
Yeah. That just reminds me, you always say bendy butter because
Yeah.
we got to have bendy butter. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I do because you do need to have equal amounts of draw and drive, and the part about drawing them up to you and drawing them to your shoulder is both a draw and a drive exercise that starts to that's where it starts. It doesn't end there, and there's a lot of pieces to that. So just looking, let us know in the comments for the people that are watching this later, what your takeaway is. And if you guys are getting some value out of this information, I mean, your story, Miranda, I think everybody is going to be able to resonate with it, right? Um, so I wasn't planning on doing this. I did mention it to you, beforehand, but let's do this. I'm about improving, and so I did kind of prepare it just shortly before our live stream here. But if everyone that's watching this wants to go into the comments and type lesson, we recorded. Well, usually, sometimes we do record some of our sessions, bits and pieces, and I recorded a session with Miranda last Thursday that doing some Liberty and working on some reverse changes of direction that I can drop that over to you for those that type in the word lesson. You can check it out if you want, and you can watch the short video, look at any of Miranda's challenges that she's having as she's working through it. She's learning, she's teaching Butter, but go in, comment lesson if you want to have access to that. So just a couple more questions for you, Miranda. what are you most excited about moving forward? What's next? What, you talked a little bit about your goal, but this next few months, what are you going to focus on over the next few months as you progress in Liberty?
Well, it may sound silly, but just trying to get some time in to work with Butter because as a trainer, everybody else's horses are first and my horses go on the back burner. And so I think this is another thing that it kind of helps me be accountable. Even if I didn't work with her, I can just admit I didn't work with her and push me to try to work with her the next week. And I guess especially over the summer is busy for me. I'm just hoping to be able to just get some sessions in. That's
Right.
my hope.
Right, because we talked about this actually earlier before we hopped on live, that there's always something that can be done, even if you didn't work with Butter during that week. There's still some improvement. Yes, consistency is important, but there's your horse retains so much with that
Yeah.
information, especially with Liberty. I find that they do. Yeah,
Yep. So, for everybody else out there, if you don't have a lot of time in your day, you still can make it happen. Because I've only worked with Butter 2 or 3 times a week, maybe four at best, and then some weeks I just don't work with her at all. So
right.
we still do a lesson and we still make progress, slow but sure.
Yeah, and I think you told me that last week too, is that when we got on, you were like, "Well, just to let you know, I haven't really worked with Butter. I don't know how it's gonna go."
I worked her twice last week for a lesson, and then this week it hasn't been anything. So
Yeah, but Butter did really well,
yeah,
very
she
well.
did.
Yeah. So we started off a little bit outside in that round pen and did some of our exercises out there, and then shifted inside into the bigger arena. But yeah, Butter did really well. So, well, I'm really excited to see what people think about all this insight that, between you and I, and I'm just going to check over here and see if there were any questions. Um, so, oh yeah, Toby, yeah. So Toby's just saying, I feel a little lost when you're talking about certain movements that I'm not familiar with, right? And those are movements that I talk about within my program, and that's something I can certainly work with you with if you're interested in hopping on. I've got a big announcement coming out tomorrow. Watch, because the program has now just expanded from not just virtual coaching to much bigger. So stay tuned to that tomorrow. But again, I'm excited to see what people are going to think about this as they rewatch it. And I am going to follow up with people, on that free video and that free lesson. So just drop lesson in the comments, and I'll get that over to you all sometime either later this evening or tomorrow, as I try to sort through and get, there's people that want the replay here, so I need to get all that organized. But I want to really thank you, Miranda, for sharing your insight with the group today and your journey. Sorry if you can hear my dog. My dog just grumbled. But do you have any last words or last comments here?
Um, I don't know. I guess I just think everybody should give Liberty a try, at least for a little bit. And when it starts to get tough, just try a little bit harder because then you're almost there.
Yeah, exactly. You're almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get discouraged during it, because there's a learning curve, and that's where it's
And
at. So.
some horses just naturally pick it up like they have more draw on them, so it's a little easier than other horses, but the harder ones will come around eventually.
Right. They do. They do. I've worked with both. Some have more draw, some have more drive, and as you got to bring down some of that drive and get more draw, and you got to bring up some of that you know drive, and not have as much draw, because some of those horses, they want to stick with you, but they don't want to pick up into a trot or a lope, and so there's a lot to work on. Each horse is different in that. So
Yep.
good. All right. Well, thank you very much, Miranda, for joining us. And I'm going to be seeing you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you,
So,
Laura.
awesome. Thank you. Take care.
You too.